You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Hey everybody, Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast, and I have with me yet again my dear friend, Kris Whitehead. Now, Kris is just a remarkable human being. He is the owner of New England Contracting.
Custom remodeling.
Sorry, he's a contractor. He is a member of the Apex community. He's an amazing trainer, and he has his own business, as you can see, Iconic Alliance. And he's all about helping people get to the next level and get deep and get serious and authenticity. And he is willing to talk with me today about shame. Welcome, Kris.
Thank you for having me, Gail. You know, you reached out to me after I wrote a post a few days ago, and you said, I'm getting ready to do this this podcast. I need somebody to talk about this. And number one, I'm willing to get on and talk about anything with you because I respect you so much. We were just having an offline conversation that, you know, it can be difficult locally. And I bet a lot of your listeners feel this as well. It can be really difficult locally to find people that you resonate with. And maybe on a heart level you do, maybe on a head level you resonate with, and maybe you're going for some of the same goals, but on a gut level, you still come home at night and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing with my life. I don't really know if these people are my friends, if these are the people that I should introduce to my children and to my wife or my husband. And I think that by getting on podcast and using technology in the best way that we can, those of us that are thought leaders, you and me and other people, can talk about subjects that maybe people on a gut level resonate with so that they can continue to follow along this process so they can be a better version of who they are. So I appreciate you for having me. And yeah, I own several businesses, and that and a cup of coffee is definitely going to get me into heaven. So, you know, anyway, it's irrelevant other than it's a scoreboard to say that, you know, I've definitely put some of these things together to create some success. But my real success in life, I'm at an age now, my real success in life is seeing other people become successful. That's going to be the legacy that I leave. And I hope that through the conversation that we have today, that we can dive deep into maybe some of the things that are holding people back. But by the end of the conversation, they're really focused on what their purpose is in life so that they can too live a fulfilled life. Because one of the things that I resonate the most with you on is that I know that you're out there living the best version of who you are, and you don't give a damn about it. And it's one of the things that I love about you the most, because you don't allow age, income, or your physical circumstance to dictate what it is you're going to do with yourself. And it's an inspiration to me and for anybody that's listening to you. So thanks for having me.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kris. Yeah, it's true. You know, and I don't know if I don't give a shit is age, but no, I think I've always kind of had that. But I come from a place of love, whereas in the past it was a place of protection. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is that place of protection, that feeling of guilt. And I call that the hidden one. And here's why. I've spent my life working on pulling down that wall that I built so strongly when I was a young child, and trying to open up and be the best that I am. And at one point, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was doing timeline work, and someone said to me, okay, so let's work on the root of guilt. I'm like, I don't have guilt. Let's not work on it because I can't even find it. I couldn't even find it. Bullshit, I don't have guilt. A few years later, I woke up and I realized I was carrying my father's guilt, my mother's guilt, my own guilt, and we'll switch to you in a second, but my father's guilt, he was a Russian Jew. Came here, he was born on the boat coming here. So he was raised with the fear of the fact that he's Jewish. You say it, you're going to be brought out into the woods and shot, right? And I can remember, I never went to temple, I never learned my religion. And he would say, don't be ashamed that you're Jewish. Pull the shades down, put on the little yarmulke, and light the candles so no one saw. Don't ever be ashamed of who you are. Pull down the shades, right? Right. And as a young child, I'm like, what's he talking about? But I witnessed it. I witnessed and I buried that in. My mother was Indian and German Jew. Lots of, even though she passed really young, that's still in your DNA. And so it was so buried, Kris, when it finally came up. I really ended up going to a shaman to help me get through it and cleared it like that. But I didn't even recognize it, right? So, and so many of us, I was shameful of the marriage I was in. My first marriage, I didn't let anyone know how bad it was. He was drinking, he was cheating on me. I didn't want anyone to know what a terrible wife I am, loaded with shame. I was ashamed of the fact that I was on welfare when I left him. I didn't let anyone know that I was using food stamps. That was terrible shame, right? And all of that stuff you carry with you. So yeah, shame, it's the hidden one. So talk to me a little bit about your aha and your shame.
Oh my goodness. So, I carried it all my life. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 2. And there is no child that goes through that without just going through the process of, and if you don't know this, it means you're still in it, everyone. But children are self-absorbed, as they should be, for a long time. And because they're self-absorbed, they think that everything not only revolves around them, but is because of them. So as a very young kid, my parents got divorced. Ipso facto, in my head, it must be my fault. And, we can spend the rest of our lives blaming those, which is really what that's all about, and staying in the ego. Or we can start to realize that humans are humans, and we go through the peeling of the onion process. And you mentioned something about a shaman. I definitely want to ask about that in a little bit. But my process began thinking that I was wrong and that I was guilty. I was also born in the South, in America, and that's called the Bible Belt. And for better or for worse, I was born in 1973. That was right around the time that the Vietnam War was going on, and a lot of changes were happening in America, and a lot of political fighting was going on, and there was a lot of right side and wrong side. And you were either part of the right side or part of the wrong side. It's kind of like, back in the 70s and the 80s, there were the Redskins and the Cowboys, and you were either for the Cowboys or for the Redskins. And if you were for the Cowboys, everybody that was from the Redskins side of things, they didn't like you. And if you were for the Redskins, well, the Cowboys had a lot larger of a following, so they could shame you and guilt you and make you feel bad. Well, my process of growing up was, believe it or not, and I speak on stages now, and I write books, and I write all this stuff, and I help people, but I'm an introvert. I am just as happy spending 2 to 3 weeks by myself, talking to God, writing things, living my life, as I am getting up on stages. And in the process of doing that, I started to realize I'm an observer. I really invest a lot of time taking information in. And I realized growing up that observation was that I'm not like everybody else. And I felt really bad for not being like everybody else. So I tried really hard to fit in. And in order to do that, I had to become a liar. If my friends, mom and dad were together, well, mine's not. So how can I say something to make me look important? Well, my dad does this and my dad does that. And I spent a long time in my life lying to other people and ultimately lying to myself. And what that created, anytime that we're lying to ourselves, it means we don't really know what the outcome is going to be from situations that we're in. I started having mistakes. Well, because I had to lie to myself and I had to avoid the shame, I had to continue to lie to myself on deeper and deeper levels until I got proverbial knocks on the forehead. Then I started getting a little bit smarter and going, how can I avoid this cyclic pattern of creating chaos in my life that I have to go solve, because the bottom line is I don't really want the chaos. And much like you, I've learned how to step out of that. And boy, did I, and I'm recommending anyone go through this process, but I didn't realize how much energy I was giving to chaos. And once I stepped outside of that, I started redirecting that energy into things that blessed my life, that blessed my friends' life, that blessed the people that are the closest to me's lives. And life is just getting better and better, because where it took maybe 60 to 70% of, maybe even more, 80% of my energy dealing with chaos, once it's gone, I have over abundant amounts of energy to focus on what it is I actually want. And that's what I want for people to be able to do in their lives, because once they're on that track, it's very hard to take somebody off of it because of the cost benefit ratio.
What's really interesting about the chaos piece of this, Kris, is those that I have observed, including myself, who are in the middle of that cyclone, feed into it. So that's what you were talking about, putting your energy in it. And what you focus on expands. If you focus on the chaos, guess what? You get more chaos. And so you focus on, holy crap, I got more chaos, and you get more chaos, and it expands exponentially. And I see people in a life that takes my breath away in a bad way, right? It's like, I don't know how they can even be in that house, right? And live that life just from the energy being drained. And the guilt, or the shame, if you will, is I have to admit that I'm feeding chaos. I don't want to admit that I'm creating this. I don't want to admit that this is actually pretty much my responsibility. I don't want to say fault, because there's no good or bad. There's no shame. There really is no shame. Once you face shame, it's gone. Right. And that's what I want to talk to you. We'll talk about how the shame and how it just disappeared.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, go ahead.
And I don't want to jump ahead, but I know that there are techniques that people can utilize literally after getting off of this podcast. Hold on one second. Literally after getting off this podcast, that they can start without paying a guru, without joining any clubs, without doing anything other than these techniques that we're going to talk about, that will allow them to give themselves permission to face that fear, to face that shame. And if we only help one person because of what we've done today, and we don't even have to know who that person ever is, besides this being a badass conversation with somebody that I love, we've done our job. And I want to help people through that just based upon my experience. And I want to preface it with, you asked me about my shame, and I didn't mean to divert and get philosophical and not say an actual thing. I'll give a very specific example now. So when I was a young fellow, my mom and my dad drank. And most people in America did, and most people never thought much about it. And, alcoholism or not, you can label it however you want. It's not really important. That has its own shame and guilt associated with it. But the point is that it was around. And I could remember driving from Southern Virginia to Northern Virginia, because before that I was on Trailways buses between my mom and dad, but I turned 16 and I started driving 4 hours each way to go visit my dad and to come back and live at home with my mom. And I happened to be 6'2" and knew the several mini marts along the pathway that I could stop at and grab a beer and put it between my legs and just drink a tall beer driving home. And because I'd never drank much before, it was pretty euphoric to have one beer and boring listening to music driving all the way home. Somewhere around 30 years later, I wrecked my truck at 11:45 at night, about a mile away from where I lived and about 1/8 of a mile away from the police station. And I got my first DUI. And I've never been to court or never been to jail. I've been to court a couple of times over things. You don't get to not do that if you're a business owner. But I'd never been because of me. And I had a wake up call. a wake-up call that I could have thought about over the previous 30 years at any given time. You know, hey man, you keep playing this Russian roulette game, you're going to eventually get stung. The fact that it took so long, I don't know if that's a miracle or not, but thank goodness I never hurt anyone. But it was a true wake-up call for me to start facing the reality. And here's where it really got good. I had to go to a 40-hour class sponsored by the state that I paid for. I had to go through a process of going over what substance abuse is, the statistics, some of the internal workings. And I could definitely sense there were probably like 20 of us. This is during, we did everything via Zoom. It was just before COVID started, I think, or just after. But we started going through a Zoom, and I could tell some of the people on there weren't that interested in being there. I could also tell that there were people that had not had their driver's license in 20 years, and it was their second or third DUI. I also found out that once you get your first DUI, it's very, very simple and very, very easy to start getting more of them. That 0.08 goes to 0.03. For 5 years. And so once you, and I know this because I've had lots of employees, once you're in the system, it's a lot easier to stay in that system. So as those statistics were coming out with gusto, I leaned into this program. We had 20 different types of papers. We had to write some things. I got real with myself. Did I really at that moment think I'll never go drink and drive again? Did I really at that moment think that, you know, oh, this was my wake-up call? No. I kind of had enough personal development to go, if I'm here, it's for a reason. Let me give it all of what I got. And in the process of going through even this government-based questionnaire and class course, I started to realize that my relationship with this thing was an abusive relationship. And I started going, if that's an abusive relationship, I wonder if that's the only one that showed up, how many other ones do I have? And this is what I got to, and this was the meat of it. It was me and me that were having the biggest fights every single day. It was me and me that didn't believe in my potential. It was me and me that was talking negatively to myself all the time. It was me and me that was afraid that I would never receive what I saw that other people had. It was me and me that was afraid that I would not be a useful tool and a person in the universe. It was me and me that really had to do the work. And I realized that at any given moment, the work can be anything that I want it to be. It can be that DUI class. It can be having a conversation with you. It can be paying for a course. It can be a conversation with my wife or my children or an employee or bum on the street that's under the bridge. And I've lived since that time a very much more willing to look internally and ask myself some simple questions. Does my gut tell me that this is the right or wrong thing to do? Not my head, not my heart, but when I sit real still, what am I hearing? And I'm telling you, Gail, the weirdest part about it is until I had that major oopsie, thank goodness it didn't hurt anybody, including me, I couldn't hear what my gut was telling me because my head was so much in the way. Or my emotions were getting ripped left and right, whether it's I'm angry at this networking group or I'm angry at this customer or this employee or blah, blah. It was either emotions or this circuitry up here trying to work things out. And what I started to realize is that I intuitively know my truth. And every human right now listening to your podcast, they know you know your truth. Who's listening to this? You know your truth. You just have to get to a place where you're bold enough to trust yourself with that truth. And that's what I want this conversation of shame to get to at the end. We all live it. We've all had things. Your story is important to you. And quite honestly, no one else gives a shit.
Right.
Because they're involved in their story. But if we can help you through relatability with our story, find a way to take another step and another step and another step so that you can start being honest with yourself, we already know the outcome of that. That's why we're doing this podcast right now. We just want you to do the work and continue to be on a path of learning to ask yourself, who are you, instead of worrying about the world defining it for you. And
honest to God, Kris, shame is kind of wrapped up in fear, right? And everything is wrapped up in either fear or love. So that's the bottom line. But I can remember when I got fired, and, if you listen to my podcast, you'll hear that story of when I had my ass fired and how angry I got. And, down the rabbit hole, I was down there and I was rolling around in the mud until one day I woke up and I looked myself in the mirror. And that's the key. Look yourself eye to eye in the mirror. And I thought, I can't stand you. How do you even have any friends? Listen to what's coming out of your mouth. Listen to the things that you're choosing to do, you're choosing to say. And I started turning my life around at that point because I didn't like what I saw. And if I can't like me, who the hell else can? Right? And the shame is the same thing. You don't show up fully in your presence if you're carrying shame, because you're holding back a little bit, because there's a little piece of you that doesn't want someone to see that. Right. And if you don't show up, like Kris shows up, he's going to tell you the truth as he knows it at this moment, at any point in time. Right. He was not always that way. Neither was I. Oh my God. Neither was I. Oh, I was so good at lying and lying to myself. Right. Oh, you're giving me goosebumps, because I was the best bullshit. I mean, I was a good bullshitter, and I wasn't. And here's what's sick. I was doing it with empathy and love. Oh my God. And thinking that it was truth. Right. I would look you in the eyes and turn the puppy dog eyes on and tell you the biggest fucking story, pardon my language. And I was lying to me at the same time, and I was fooling both of us. And then what would happen is the house would come falling down, and I'd go, well, isn't that curious? Right. How did that happen? Building a house of cards, right? Building a house of cards, and this little bit of a wind comes knocking down. I know. And, one of the other things that I really want to emphasize this, many people are ashamed of not making enough money, right? And yet they don't take a look at what they do have, right? And they have not defined for themselves what success is. Success for me is not a dollar sign. Success for me is the ability to have freedom, right? And you've seen me take, I'm going on a road trip. Yep, I'm taking a flight. I'll see you in about 2 months, right? That to me is success. The ability to pick up almost at a whim's note. I mean, I'm starting to plan, what am I going to do next, right? That's success for me. So define it for you. And yes, you need money to do that. Well, let's unpack it real quick, because this is going to be important. The reason that people do that is because they have the wrong relationship with money. In the text that is most near and dear to my heart, and people misquote it all the time. They go, money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. And that's not what it says. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, a wise human will dissect that or meditate on that for a while and go, well, what does that really mean? Well, I'll put it to you like this. It's real simple. Let's not use the word money. Let's use the word corn. Okay. Corn is in replacement of money. See, I know that if you plant enough seeds in the ground and you nurture them, some of those seeds are going to go in soil that is really fertile, but some of those seeds are going to go in soil that gets choked out
by bramble. Some of those seeds are going to be planted in ground that don't have any nutrients in them, like a hard rock. But if you continue to plant enough seeds, and again, we're using corn instead of money, if you plant enough of those seeds and you tend them correctly, which means that you don't eat them before the fruit comes out, if you nurture that plant and you keep the weeds away from them, and maybe you add a little bit of water if you can figure out how to do that, but you let the sun do what the sun's going to do, what will happen is those plants will turn into fruit, and those fruit have 30, 60, 100-fold seeds in them. So now you can eat the fruit and replant more seeds. Well, see, money's the same way. And it is very true. If you plant your money in fertile soil and you tend it, you'll get more money back. But people that have enjoyed lying to all of us for many years put money on a pedestal, put power on a pedestal, put things away from you to make you clamor for them and want them, to the point where you actually disempower yourself and you're willing to do reckless things with your money, betting on what, like to win the lotto. I literally have heard it said that you're more likely to be struck by lightning twice more than you're capable of actually winning the lottery. But the lottery is always at 34, 50 million dollars or something like that. That shows the mentality of what's been taught to people. But when we get a proper relationship with money is actually very simple to grow. We teach our clients how to do that on clockwork. What isn't as simple, and it's one of my favorite questions when I'm on stage: who are you? And what do you really want? So what is money going to get you? And it's funny when you finally get people to sit back and go, who am I? That's a stumper.
Right.
And even bigger of a stumper, which really surprised me, is that when you say, what do you really want? They haven't thought past what they're going to do once they get the money, which is why they're never getting the money. It's like you're putting a stop in front of what you want to actually get to.
Right.
And that's why the love of money is the root of all evil. It just means that it does not grow, because if you focus on this thing that's a tool, it's like, well, I want 40 more DeWalt drills. You're not going to motivate yourself to go buy more drills than you need to use. You just aren't. And people aren't willing to go do the work to make money, because money in and of itself does nothing for you.
Right.
Nothing. Right. So what do you really want? That's a great starting place for people. If they don't know who they are, they can at least focus on what they want and start getting real. But you can't get real about what you want until you're willing to admit to yourself that there's some shame and blame and guilt going on in your head, because you literally have a very difficult time saying what you want when you don't believe you deserve it.
Oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. This whole relationship with money, it's interesting. I did a podcast with Kris this week, and it was about hanging on to money so tight that you choke the life out of it. And I gave a specific example of my brother who does that. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. He's married to this woman that used to be bubbly and fun and enjoyable, and has squoze the life out of her, because she can't do anything unless he's right there with her, because he's so afraid of losing her that he's lost her. Right? How you do one thing is how you do everything. In your relationship with money, you look at your relationship with your significant other, look at your relationship with friends, right? It's the same thing. It really is crazy when you start unpacking that stuff, right?
It's exactly why I use the idea of growing fruit or plants in a field. If you want your money to grow, everyone, you have to invest your money. Whether you invest it in networking groups or someone's course, or you buy an Airbnb or a rental property, or you start a side gig of your own. If you want money to grow, you have to risk it. If you hoard it, there's another story. And the deal is that this guy gave 3 different people different levels of stuff. Let's call them talents. He gave this one guy 10 talents, this other guy 5 talents, and this one guy 1 talent. Well, the guy that he gave 10 talents to went out and invested those talents and came back with 100. The guy that he gave 5 talents to went out and invested it and he came back with 10. And the guy with the 1 talent, he buried it in the ground because he didn't want to lose it. And he didn't want to make his master mad at all because he's like, look, I can't lose this thing. Well, when the master met the guy with the 100 talents, he said, good job. I'm going to give you some more. The guy with 5, he's got 20. Good. I'm going to give you some more. The guy with 1 handed him the 1 talent back. And he said, give me that talent. I'm going to go give it to these guys because they know what to do with it. And see, people bury their talents. They bury their money. They bury what they love so much that they suffocate it to death instead of understanding their relationship with it. And that's the whole idea behind shame. Look, it's there for a reason. It's there to let you know that there's some untapped work and potential in you that you get to look at. And you have to get to a supernatural place. It's truly supernatural because our fight or flight mechanism is hardwired into us for a long, long time. And so when things scare us or things hurt, we tend to fight them or run away from them. You have to get to what I call a supernatural place where you realize, man, if I focus on this thing, if I face this thing, it will surely dissipate because what I bring to it is much stronger than what it truly is. And that's why talking about money, talking about relationships, it's all the same. It comes back to this root. And the root is that you're applying something that is not true as if it is. And just by knowing what the truth is, it can set you free.
Oh my God. So I will tell you the shaman story. Okay. So,
cool.
And you know who the woman is. I'll tell you after we're done.
Okay.
And so I called her and I'm like, I don't know whether I need to do an Indian thing because of my mother or what. And so she said, well, you really don't need me, but let me tell you what you can do. So she had me, guys, meditate, call it visioning, close your eyes and envision. That's all. Bring down your father, bring down your mother, and bring down shame. Have a conversation. Like, okay, now I was like afraid of what was going to come out of this, but I did. Dad on the left, mom on the right, shame right in front of me. And I'm like, so, okay, guys, their shit's come up lately. And, I want to understand what has been going on in your lives so that I can release it. But both of them looked at me and they went, oh, honey, that's long gone. Let it go. And shame disappeared. That's
Wow.
how quickly it happened. Right? So I'm hanging on, you're hanging on to shit that doesn't matter anymore. And I was told, it doesn't matter anymore, Gail, let it go. And I called my friend back. We laughed. She goes, sometimes you just need validation that it's okay to let it go. Right? So
Yeah,
guys,
sure.
try it. Try it. It was so powerful. So powerful.
So I really like that. And I agree with you. I've had multiple mini breakthroughs in my life based upon my willingness to explore. I've also run into my fair share of witch doctors through the process, but I'll tell you why. It's because all I was willing to tolerate at the time. I wasn't really willing to get around people that were of the real stuff because I wasn't vibrationally at the same frequency that those people were. And what I have experienced since then, and this is where the chaos really dissipates, I don't attract people to me anymore that vibrate at that level. They don't tend to like hanging around me very much because I am willing to be honest. Like, I look at it this way. If I saw you in a room and you had a little boogie hanging out and every time you breathed, it went in and out and in and out, wouldn't it be wrong of me to let you keep walking around the room with a little boogie hanging out?
You send me a Kleenex.
Right. So if we're going to be real with one another, why would I tolerate you? Like, that's not being a very good friend to me. That's embarrassing. I get up on stage and I'm being videotaped and, I've got this big snot ball hanging out and nobody's saying, here's a tissue. It's quick, or my zipper's down or whatever. it's incumbent upon us to just tell the truth. And the problem is that when you're hanging around other people that are lying to themselves, they're only telling you a version of the truth because they're not telling themselves the truth. So it's important to hang around people at higher and higher levels. And everybody knows that. The way that you get there, and I mean this sincerely, because I hang out with very, very, very high level people. I coach them too. You start telling yourself the truth, and your truth matches their truth, and you find out that you have things to talk about and you have reasons to hang out, and you don't end up going left when you should go right. You don't end up going right when you should go left, because it's an instinctual gut-based thing instead of this manufactured thing that we've been doing since the 50s or maybe even before.
Maybe
And that's it. That's the
yeah.
And that's the economy that we live in now. And I think that the world is ripe for some truth because of what we've even seen happen over the last 3 to 4 years. You know, it's becoming more and more apparent that there is a show on for everyone, and it's not truth.
No, it's not truth. It's not truth. And yes, there's more of a division because there's those who are hungry for the truth and those who still want to keep their head buried in the sand.
Correct.
You know, and that's okay. You know, I am so past the blame game, so past, you know, that's, you know, your truth is your truth, and that's beautiful. Let me continue, but allow me to search and find mine. You know, it's your truth, and that's fine. You know, I'm going to continue on my journey. And those are the type of people that I've been more and more resonating with. I mean, I told you, I'm getting invited to these meetings. I don't even know who's inviting me. And I'm showing up and I'm like, look at all these amazing people. Holy crap, where have you been? And none of them are local.
Yep.
None of them are local. And I'm getting, you know, hey, we're having an event in May. Come on down to Rhode Island. Hey, when's the next time you're going to be out in California? Come out to Kentucky. Like, okay, time for a road trip, right? Right. So they want to meet me in person even.
Yeah.
Right. And so to resonate at that level of people, to me is, I mean, that's success. That is juicy, right? And when you were talking about people not even knowing who they are, one of the things, and you know, one of the things I do is help people find what it is that, what does it feel like when you reach that, whatever it is that you desire? And it doesn't matter what it is. And for me, the word is juicy, and I get goosebumps when I say delicious, right? Right. And so if it doesn't feel delicious, why the hell would I do it? And that's what you're saying, Kris. Why would I go right when it's clear that left is where I want to go? Right. You know, yes, I might have to go through, you know, a little bit of shit to get there. But what's on the other side is where I want to go. Right.
Right.
Right. And a lot of it is, you know, the shame. I mean, when we fail, we have shame of failure. You know, we have shame of success. I had shame at being smart. I was told to shut up in business. Keep your mouth shut, Gail. You know, you're not the only smart person in the room. I'd keep my mouth shut and no one would say anything. Right. Like, I may not be the only smart person in the room, but I'm the only one who's going to say anything. Right. So squashed in business. I mean, me being fired was the best gift that God ever gave me, because that I was squashed in everything I did in that company. He was told, no, you can't do this. I'm like, right. I'll give you a perfect example. And this is, you know, and I felt shame about who I was because I didn't fit. Right. And I tried, but you know, and I'd be okay for a couple of months and then something would break. Oh, I would come through. So as a project manager, you do this thing called lesson learn. What went well, what didn't go well, what can we do better? And I was on a project that hit every problem in that company. So I put together this rather complex lesson learn. And lessons learned, this broke, here's how we fix it. So it's not a bitch session. It's like, I identified this came up, here's what we can do better. I presented it to my sponsors because you don't do lessons learned unless they're prepared. And I was told, no, we cannot say that. But we have a systemic problem.
Right.
And we can solve it. Oh, no, Gail, you can't present that. What? What? And that shortly after that, I got fired. That and another story I'll tell you sometime.
So I've had lots of experiences where I've been kicked out mainly because I was willing to tell the truth. And what I found often is that people in power don't like giving up their power, which is all that really is when and what you were saying reminded me of something that I spoke on really recently, and it's producers and consumers. And my experience in life is that most people are consumers of things, and they're the people that believe, and we talk about this money thing, they believe that when they exchange the money, that they deserve what they imagine they're getting for exchanging that money, instead of actually what's being said that they'll get for that money. It's been my first experience. Number two, people that are consumers tend to use things, love things, and use people. They tend to be the kind of people that give the minimum amount and expect the maximum from something. And the way that I talked about it was, they're the kind of people that want the VIP treatment, but they want to pay general admission to get there. And I want your listeners to just think about how many times in life they've complained about the gas price rising recently, or they've complained about something not working out. And it's usually that idea of, I've exchanged money and I didn't get taken care of. Well, what if you started instead saying, I'm responsible for every bit of it? What if you could be bold enough and your self-image is strong enough to realize that you're in control of everything that you do and every experience that you truly have? Then you can become something called a producer. Now, the cool thing about producers is producers don't focus on what they get, because they're quite sure that they're going to get what they want, because they've identified what they want, and they make smart decisions based upon putting effort into things, because they listen to their gut and they know intuitively that foundational things produce foundational results. How do I know that? Well, let me give you an example. If you put corn in the ground, you don't get a watermelon, ever. Never in recorded history have I heard anyone say, I planted a corn seed and a piece of watermelon came out. So producers understand the basics of how things grow, and what it turns them into are seed spreaders. Seed spreaders are another way of saying go-givers. They're people that are willing to get on podcasts. They're people that are willing to pay their money and go to Kentucky. They're willing to join networking groups and see what it's like and give it a chance. They're not the kind of people that think that they know everything, and they're constantly in pursuit of a refining process of that knowledge to get more and more of the result that they want. And here's what's even more beautiful about it. 99% of the producers that I have met, even if they didn't start this way, they eventually become this way. It becomes more about what they're giving and who they're giving it to than it does the result that they're getting, because they're so abundantly blessed above and beyond. Again, one seed turns into 30, 60, or 100 new seeds if you just take care of it. And because they understand that principle, they have no scarcity mindset. They have no lack mindset. They're willing to face shame, because they realize walking through that shit for a little while produces a better result. And if it doesn't, it's probably their perspective on it, and they're willing to change that until they get that, because they realize that this thing that keeps coming up in multiple different ways isn't going to go away by itself. And so this idea of turning from a consumer into a producer is the way that the law of attraction truly works, because without action, law of attraction doesn't do a damn thing. You're not going to sit here and meditate yourself into the results that you want. You're going to get your ass to work and go do something. It's just going to be productive work. And so that leads me to this part that I want your people to be able to take away.
Thank you.
How do you get yourself out of shame? Well, you can definitely pay a shaman or a great coach like you to walk through that process. Let's say they're not quite ready to do that yet. And I get it. If you're skeptical, if you're dealing with a bunch of shit, things that have happened in your life, you're like, yeah, I'm not. Well, if you're listening to this podcast, the first thing I want to let you know is you're a lot further along than you think that you are, because there are only certain kinds of people that listen to this kind of stuff anyway. Ding, ding. Number two, if you resonate with anything that we're saying on a gut level, if you're just going, yeah, that sounds right, guess what? You are in search of. So you're a lot further along the process than you think. You might want to add one little thing to it. The reason why people's confidence is so low is because they don't trust. Makes sense, right? No, doesn't? Okay. The person that you don't trust is yourself, because you're out of integrity with you. If you say that you're going to work out, you need to work out. If you say you're going to eat 3 meals a day and they're going to be a certain way, you need to not stuff your face full of sweets every night and drink yourself to oblivion. And you don't have to make them big, strong, bold goals. You can just say, today, I'm going to drink 2 cups of coffee instead of 3, and stick to it. Today, I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to go walk outside. You can start doing tiny little things so that you can start learning to trust yourself again. And in the process of you learning to trust yourself, you're going to build your confidence. And in the process of you building your confidence, you're going to be way more willing to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the kinds of questions that Gail asked you. Are you lying to yourself, or are you not? And here's the beautiful thing. When you're truly confident in who you are and you realize that you're doing something to harm yourself, you simply just start giving yourself permission to not to anymore. And that's when the breakthrough happens. And then my hope is that you will surround yourself with like-minded people that don't judge you for whatever level you are or are not. There's always somebody we can compare ourselves to and shame ourselves. But instead, you start hanging around people that talk positively about themselves and the people that are around them, that don't create drama where drama is not necessary, and that together you can work collectively on being the best version of who you are. And that is a very, very simple process that anybody can do. Doesn't cost you a dime. Just start being honest with yourself by fulfilling the promises that you're making yourself. And they don't have to be big or small compared to anyone else. They can be just right for you. Today is a day that I'll turn the TV off and not watch the news. Just today. And then tomorrow we'll see what I do next.
That would be an awesome one. So thank you, Kris. And by the way, I mean, he did this at the drop of a hat. I love this man. So tell everyone, especially about Iconic, especially about Apex, how they can get in touch with you for more information.
All right. So I appreciate that. So Iconic Alliance is, my brand is Iconic. And if anybody's watching this instead of hearing it, I have a sign behind me and a shirt on that says it. But Iconic is a network of people that believe in faith, family, fitness, and finance. Faith in yourself. Family is your family of choice. That's the people that you choose to put around you. Faith, family, fitness is exercise. You and I know a lot about that because we've done it together. And your finances is truly about the goals that you want to accomplish, and making money is one of those ways. We are getting ready to launch in about 2 weeks, Iconic Couples, and it's going to be a live event. We're going to have very intimate, higher level people that are there, as well as just general admission people that want to come check it out. And Iconic Alliance is truly helping you put all of these things together so that you can have a successful life. And it's from people that are doing it and have done it, not from people that are experimenting on you with your money to see if we can put this thing together. And we have about 100 students right now, 100 clients right now, and we're getting ready to explode that in a big way. But another easy way to find out about me, if you want, I have a #1 best-selling book. It's called Becoming Iconic: How to Make Today's Ceiling Tomorrow's Floor. Or you can find me on the social media channels. I'm Kris with a K. I'm the Kris Whitehead on Facebook. I'm Kris Whitehead Official on Instagram. And if you need to find me another way, you're going to need to buy a book or something else, because that's primarily where I hang out in the socials. I really appreciate you having me, Gail. I really do.
Oh, Kris, it's been fantastic. And again, this is Gail Craft from the Empowering Process podcast. If this resonated with you, share it, like it, download it, subscribe to it. Something came up during this, put a comment. Maybe Kris will come back and talk with me about that comment. It's been great talking to you. Everyone, have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, Be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.